So it's so great to have you all with us tonight. We are focusing on school transition prayer spaces. So they are prayer spaces in schools, but they with a specific theme. And for tonight, we've invited Leah Peters, who's one of our national team, to share with us because last year alone, I think it was almost 30 transition prayer spaces that she ran, and that wasn't the first year. So, for someone very, very experienced, we thought we've got to get her on to share with you. So, welcome, Leah. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Naomi. Good to be here with everyone tonight.
Leah, before we start, can you just introduce yourself to everyone? Where are you in the world? What do you do?
Yeah, I think I just saw Asuka become come on. I think she was my predecessor in Northamptonshire. I think so. Is that true, Sue? Is it the right Sue? So,
Yes.
well, hi, Sue. Um, yeah, so I am the networker for Prayer Space in Schools Northamptonshire. Like Naomi said, I've recently joined the national team for Prayer Space in Schools. But I also am a director of a schools work charity that goes into 38 schools across our county, Northamptonshire. And so, of recent years, I have been leading transition workshops in schools. And when I started discovering a bit more about prayer spaces, somebody challenged me and said, have you ever thought about taking in a transition prayer space, to go as a precursor before your workshop, which I hadn't. So yeah, that's my story of how I got here. I love it. Yeah, 28 schools last year. It was last year, yeah.
Incredible. Over what kind of time period did you do 28 schools?
We go in through June and we slipped into the first week or so of July, I think.
Amazing. So many
Yeah.
questions, but I think what I would do is we jump straight in because I know you've got some pictures and images to show us the how, the why, the detail. So
Yeah.
you may well answer some of those questions.
Okay.
For everybody on the call, use the chat. If we're going through and you've got questions, please use the chat because then we can answer as we go as well. But Leah, you have the power, I believe.
Okay.
Should be able to share. What is a transition year prayer space in school?
Okay, so if I just get my presentation up here. So when I started doing these prayer spaces for transitions in schools, I'd already been using um the Your Move, the Scripture Union Your Move books, and we developed kind of like a workshop. So they were around change, challenge, and choice. Those are the three topics for the workshop. And so what we did is we took those things and we developed a prayer space that we could take into school. It would be a classroom prayer space. It would just be up for the day. And we would invite the year sixes to come in small groups of 15, about 45 minutes, and just spend time. I mean, when you've just done your SATs and you're in between SATs and moving to secondary school, what better activity than to go in and be allowed just to be in a space like that? Um, they absolutely love it. So, um, I'm just going to talk through the process we went through, what we do, some of the activities, and the reason behind why I feel these prayer spaces for transitions are so vitally important in our primary schools, but definitely in secondary, although I haven't done that just yet. So why transitions? That's a good place to start, isn't it? In actual fact, if we think about it, our kids are always transitioning, aren't they? So there's a transition into primary from nursery. There's a transition between key stage one, key stage two, and so on. You could do this at any stage, um, but research shows that kind of the biggest dip and the biggest worry is going from primary to secondary. there's quite a massive change, and this is why we're focusing on this. So there's loads of research that shows that supporting children through transition to secondary school is just such a crucial thing, both with emotionally, academically, socially, but also spiritually, because this is one thing that people don't focus on a lot, isn't it? You know, we prepare our kids emotionally and physically and academically, but spiritually, the concerns, but also so the depth of where am I going in my life, who am I, all those big questions that they have. These are the kind of things they really need dealing with, and quite often teachers and parents don't really know how to answer them. So this is where prayer spaces come in. This is where the church comes in. This is how we can cushion and nurture the children spiritually and help them to stand, to stand with sort of strong feet on the ground. So we know that if kids sort of have good transitions, they have academic success when they move on, social emotional development. Stress and anxiety, that's a massive emotional thing that seems to come up within our transition prayer spaces. The feeling of independence when they move from primary, if they feel more secure, they're more likely to go into secondary and actually feel confident enough to sort of ask questions and to make friends. And also going in with a positive school experience. So that's why they are. So this is where prayer spaces fit beautifully in here, because they provide a safe place to share the worries. And I'm sure that there's lots of people here who are doing these things all the time. And we know from experience that children find prayer spaces a place where they can feel safe to share these concerns and worries just because of the nature of how it's set up. They can deal with past hurts, and that's one thing that we found. We've designed something, not really fully understanding the power of it, which I'll explain, but we have activities where we get them to leave things behind, sort of based on the principle of Paul when he says this is wisdom, to stretch forward for what's ahead of you and leave the things behind you. So there's something about leaving things in primary that need to stay in primary so that you can move on to secondary without all that baggage. Thinking about their own identity so that when they move on, they're not prone to sort of giving up who they are just to sort of go along with peer pressure. Celebrating everything that's gone before. It's important, isn't it? It's a massive thing about change is that we acknowledge that actually where I am today, present, I've had a wonderful time. There's been lots of good things going on in my life, but actually this is a time for me now to move. But I need to still celebrate the stuff that's gone on in my life while I've been here. That's a really important spiritual step. And to help them plan for future social and emotional decisions. So we have 14 activities. I'm only going to show you some of them here, and then I'm going to show you a walkthrough of a video in a prayer space that we set up in Northamptonshire, just so you can see the layout and what we did. So there's 14 different activities. It sounds like a lot, but actually it fits into a classroom setting quite nicely. It's intimate. We use gazebos to sort of structure the space nicely. So one of the activities we have, you can see here, transforming butterflies. So we ask the children to think about one thing that they are worried about changing and something that they're excited about changing, and so they can write on one side of the butterfly wing and then they post it up. But they think about the things, acknowledging the fact that there's things that I am concerned about, but there's things that I'm really excited about, and that whole dynamic, that balance. Then we have the celebration of the wow wall there, and they write on favorite moments they've had in primary school. And that's lovely, especially for like the teachers love it, coming in and looking at and some of the things not expecting, like my wow moment was when I was ill and I was in hospital and everyone in my class wrote me a card, a get well card, or when I made it to head boy or something like that. Or so these celebrations there, we put in big questions for God into our transition space just because we want to acknowledge that this is a spiritual step, and they're at an age where they have questions, and there might be things that they just want to share and ask. And so in this activity, you might have done it a different way, but we get them to rip up some cardboard and write just questions that they might have for God. They don't have to necessarily to be anything to do with school, but quite often they are like, what's the purpose in life? Um, why did you make sadness? But there's all kinds of questions that come up. What plan have you got for my life? Why was I born? These are the things that the children are starting to think about at this transition stage of their lives. And then we've got things about thinking about their future. So we have hope blossoms here, where they take a piece of origami paper and they write things that they're really looking forward to, what they really want to see in their future, and then put it in the paddling pool, and they can sit as a contemplative activity where they can just sit and watch the paper lily expand and open up. And that's an opportunity. They might want to talk about that with someone who's sitting in the room, or just sit and watch. We have a bubble tube prayers. Look at that one. Am I who I really think I am? That's a big question, isn't it? Am I thinking about life, losing my friends? And so, as always within prayer spaces, there's opportunities where we encourage the children that they can pray, but they can also just write down things that they're thinking about. And the idea with this one is that as they watch the bubbles go up, if they're offering a prayer, they can imagine that their prayers are going up to God. So it's a visual activity, but it's also quite a stimulative one. So when they're in there, it's really lovely, just calming to be in that space. We've got ones about forgiveness and identity there as well. So fizzy forgiveness. One thing that we have found when we've been doing this over the last few years is this fizzy forgiveness has had one of the biggest impacts, along with other ones of letting go and saying sorry. Because there might be things that they feel guilty about, things that have happened within primary school. They might have done something to somebody in reception, kicked them in the shin, and they've never cut this happened, they cut someone's hair when they were in reception, and they've never forgiven themselves. And so this is something that they can say, do you know what, I'm going to leave here, and before I leave this space, before I leave this place, either they can ask God to forgive them, or they might want to forgive themselves, or they might want to forgive somebody else. And so the opportunity there is to put the vitamin C tablet in, and as they just watch it dissolve, they think about how forgiveness is about letting things go and it being taken away as far as the east is from the west. The mirrors activity is about identity. And inside those little eggs, you can see on the floor there are questions about themselves, like what would you say is what's the thing about you that makes everybody love you, or something about you that everybody admires. And they can pick up a mirror if they want to and look at themselves in the mirror and think about these questions about themselves. And it's actually that for some people who have problems with appreciating and loving themselves, that's a real impact, because maybe they haven't seen that before. Maybe they have been anxious about going to secondary school, thinking, are people going to like me? And so it just gives them chance to think through those things and think, actually, there are great things about me. There's things I really, really love about myself and appreciate about myself. And I think God would really want them to do that because he really loves them and he really appreciates them. So that's an activity there. You can see this is just a picture to show you how it might look set up. So you can see we put two gazebos up, and we have some activities in the tents and some things behind the tents. In the teepee there, we've got stress beads. I know Sue Kirby, this is one that you did because I nicked it from your team, Western Fable. But it's a stress lesson. They can go in there, they can shut themselves in the teepee and they can hold these beads and let them go. And quite often boys that are quite edgy and um, active love going in there, hiding themselves away and doing the activity. Got a gratitude wall where they think about all the things they're thankful for. Quite often they put up there, thankful for my teachers, I've been thankful for my school, been thankful I've been able to do these sports, I'm thankful that people looked out for me, and they put all these things up and remind them that going through this change, there's good things going on as well as things that may be making them feel a little bit anxious. So here's a little video of me just sharing. I've widened it a little bit just because it was quite narrow. I think I took it, didn't I, Naomi, was sort of vertical instead of horizontal. So I've widened it a little bit. So if it looks a little bit wide, it's because of that. But hopefully you'll get a feel of what it might look. So this is in a library in a school in Northamptonshire. So you just have to go in and make the most of the space. So I will play and let put your thumbs up if you can hear it when I play it. Okay. Welcome to Brixworth Library. This is what the children are going to see when they come in. If they look to their right, there are two activities down here, hidden away behind with the books. First one's about friendship, and second one is about identity. And then if you come in here, this activity is about saying sorry and leaving things behind, asking to God's forgiveness for things and knowing that he wipes the slate clean. This activity is about identity, about what makes you unique and special, remembering to stay who you are when you go to secondary. Then we've got Hope Blossoms paddling pool, where they make a little origami lily, put it in and see it open up slowly. And then in this tent here, we've got an activity where they listen to instructions about things that you might want to let go of so that they can move on. The biblical principle that wisdom says, forgetting what's behind and reaching forward to what's ahead of you. Here we have big questions for God that are going to be pegged up. Over here we have the butterflies that are going to be pegged up onto the netting. This is things that you are, on one side, things that you are excited about, change, and the things that other side, things you're a bit wobbly or concerned about. Through here, it's a Play-Doh activity where you're thinking about where you fit into community and where you want to fit in with the community. In this little teepee is stress beads, and you think about how the fact that God cares for each of us, and you can cast all your worries to God because he cares for you. And as they hold these and release them, they think about how the fact that God takes our worries and we can let go of them. Then we turn around. This is going to be the wow wall, where they will put stars of all the things that peg stars up, all the things that have been amazing in primary. And then into this tent you have the prayer tube, bubble tube, and here they have a chance to put on a post-it note to everything that they want to pray to God about, and as the bubbles go up they remember that God listens to our prayers. This one is a forgiveness, so they take a little vitamin C tablet, drop it in, and as it fizzes they know that God forgives anything that they ask him to forgive. So that's us. They're about to be here in a few minutes, so over and out from me. Welcome to Brixworth.
You're on mute, Leah. So sorry.
Sorry about that. It's always going to happen once, hasn't it? So these are the 14 activities, as you can see here. I want to put up for you just in case anybody wanted to sort of take a a screenshot or anything of what all the activities that we have done. One I didn't talk to you about, a couple of them I didn't talk to you about, was a friendship foundation. So they have blocks where they have to choose 5 values that they would like to see in a friend. And then they tie 5 knots in a piece of string and for those 5 values, and then they can wear the bracelet and they can take that home to remind them. And actually a week later, when they come in for the workshop, they've still got it on. And I said, have you actually had a shower? but they've yeah, they just want to keep it on. That's one of the things that they reminds them of the things that they appreciate about people. The community with the Play-Doh, forming themselves in using the Play-Doh, and then just contemplating and thinking, how present have I been in school? Have I got involved in lots of things in school? What do I want to do when I move to secondary? Am I gonna still be kind of a little bit shy, or I want to get more involved? And they can put themselves around the school where they're anticipating they want to be as they approach secondary school. And then the identity bookmarks, they do a thumbprint on it. Quite often they go mad and get lots of colours and do lots of thumbprints, but then they write all the things that they like about themselves that make them unique and special, and they can take that away as well.
Thank you so much for sharing really valuable insights and ideas. We do have on our website, I've just popped in the chat, a set that has been specifically put together that features most, if not all, of what Leah just shared with us. But we will also share out the slide that Leah has shared. I have a couple of questions for you, Leah.
Mm-hmm.
So, number one, what do you only go into church schools or non-faith schools as well?
Yeah, both.
Both. And do you do exactly the same in both?
Yes.
And someone asked specifically, was the video we just saw in a church or non-church school?
That was in a church school, but because of the nature of prayer spaces in schools, when I go in, I let the school know that it's going to be accessible for every child, whether they have faith or no faith, particular faith. Because when I start and I give the introduction, I always say to the children, this has been prepared just for you. You can do all of it. You can do none of it. And actually, I had one boy take me at my word in one school and laid down the whole time. But the thing is, I felt it's something they don't often get the opportunity to choose. It's like taking them back to reception when they can choose what they do. But generally, what you tend to find is that they do every activity, but they can choose whether they pray or they can choose whether they just reflect. And I think that's the beauty of it, isn't it? So that everybody can come in and access it.
Yeah, choice is so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've had a few students in secondary where they come in, they say, I don't want to do this, or I don't pray. And we're like, no problem. Just take your time and read other people's prayers and thoughts. And literally within minutes, you see them joining in because they have a preconceived idea of what they think they're going to be doing. And actually, when they come in and find actually that prayer is many different ways about many different things in a creative prayer space, it creates unique opportunities that maybe they've not had before. That often you find they do indeed choose to pray, which is great. That's what it's there for pupils to have the opportunity to experience prayer for themselves.
Yeah.
Second question, how long do your classes come in for? So you've got that love you spent, all that space, all those different activities. How long do they get?
They get 45 minutes. That includes a 5-minute talk at the beginning, generally, and a 5-minute reflection at the end. Some, depending on the school and how many children, if it's a smaller school or bigger school, whether they turn up on time or they don't, depends on the timing. But generally, we tell them 45 minutes, and that we found that just runs about the right time
Yeah,
for those 14 activities. Yeah.
brilliant. And do you take them around one activity at a time, or can they just go around and choose which ones they want?
Yeah, because they're year sixes, all the instructions are there. They can read them. I will I will explain a few of them. I'll say things like, if no more than two people at a station at one time, and why do you think we want it to be silent like this? Things like that. So I'll send them out and say, just go and have a look what you want to do. Um, Yes, the music, you have music in the prayer space and lighting. I always play music, so, sort of instrumental music in the background, very low, and use some fairy lights and things in there, just because I think it adds to something special. I think when they first come in, like Naomi said, when they first come in, they might have a preconceived idea. They're thinking, "Oh, I'm going to a prayer space." But when they come in and they find out how lovely and how much attention's been put to this just for them, for this moment in time, for them to spend that time, I think all those little things matter.
Yeah, it adds to the awe and wonder as well, doesn't it? Of this is a special space. It's no longer the library or,
Mm,
you know, the reflection room or, whatever that it's previously been used for.
mm,
It's a special space, special time.
mm.
Um, okay, so we're going to go into breakout rooms just for 10 minutes. Bruce has asked, has Leah always done that many stations at once, or have you built the session up gradually, adding each year?
Yeah, we started with that many.
Yeah.
And when we did it, we would I did think to myself it would be too many, but it's actually not. I think for the 45 minutes it just fits nicely. Yeah. Bit of luck really, I think there.
Jane also comments, one of our schools always asks the children to take their shoes off in their first prayer space. It's part of the holy ground experience in that school. That's beautiful.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love that. That might be so, yeah. Some kids don't like taking the shoes off, so I've never asked them, but actually I think it is a nice thing. It's kind of intentional. I'm going to something special, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
One lady did ask right early on, actually, do you answer all the big questions?
Mm. No. This has been something that I've wrestled with a little bit actually, because part of the thing I think about going into that space is that they're allowed just to be in there, and it's a place where they can offload, and not necessarily that we put upon them anything. However, some of the questions that have been there, I give everything that the children do to the teacher, and then some of the teachers say, "Okay, I'm going to follow some of these things up in PSHE and just go through things." But it seems to me like it would be a wonderful thing if people had time afterwards, if you had someone, a vicar or somebody who went into school regularly, to maybe offer up another session and say to the children, there was some questions that came out with this. We're just going to follow up. It's anonymous, so nobody's pointed out. If you wanted to do that, I think that's a lovely idea. But I also think it doesn't really matter so much, because God is listening to them. And um, sometimes we feel like we've always got to be the answer. Um, but actually, the fact that they've put it out there, what we do actually, when I take them down, I put my hand over it and I say, Jesus, I pray that they would find their answers in you, because you can't always do everything, but God can reach every single person, can't he, in his ways. So that's something we
Yeah.
do.
We're the same in our prayer spaces. The prayer activity invites them to ask God a big question, not me, not my team. But we always offer it to the teachers afterwards, and we have had a few RE teachers or RE leads that have looked for the common questions and then done lunchtime club or RE lessons focused on those questions. And that's a brilliant way of more pathway into more understanding of Jesus, of the Bible, of the world, based off the questions that the children are asking in the school at the time. So, yeah, that's fantastic if that can be done. But in the moment, we certainly don't need to answer those questions. That's the invitation, and the response is
Mm.
um, Someone here has just asked, is it important that the space takes place in the school? Or does it work if the children are invited to come to the church where it is all set up specially for them?
We had this in our group. Um, I mean, ideally, it's lovely for it to be in the school. The nature of prayer space in school, just so that the children realise that you don't have to go to a particular place, that God can be in their space where they are. However, we in our chat, there was a lady who was saying that they've got a very, very small school. There's nowhere to go at all. Um, and there's only two formentaries in the whole school, and there's zero places to go. So I said to her, is your church nearby? It might be, even for the first year, just to demonstrate what it is. You do it in the church. If the children can walk there, they might go, oh, okay, now we know what it looks like. And you could say then, do you know what? Be lovely if you could get a classroom and we could bring it there for next year. They might, once they've seen it once, they might be more willing to give up their space. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say it's nice for it to be school. That's where ideally that's the best place. But if it's between doing it or not doing it and being in church or school, I would say choose the space where you can do it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We want children and young people to know that God is with them wherever they are. They don't have to go to a special space. But if you're faced with do it or don't, do it.
Mm, yeah.
We were doing training last week down in Chichester, and one lady was getting really excited. She didn't have a massive space, but she was like, I'm going to do it in the playground. I'm going to send out with a suitcase. I'm going to do a surprise, different activities each week. So they're, to build momentum. So I think, yeah, work with what you've got. And it is really special to go to visit the church as well. But yeah, first choice would be in the school. Leah, thank you so very much for your time and for sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom and ideas with us. We will send out a copy of this recording and your notes and links that we have shared in the chat. These sessions, the prayer space sessions, are we really try to keep them to 1 hour to respect everyone's time, but also to create space for conversation, for relationship and connection and sharing ideas. So really hope that has helped you tonight. Our next session is in May and is specifically on chaplaincy in school. Tim, do you want to share some information about that?
Yeah, so we recognise that alongside the amazing growth of prayer spaces in schools across the country, there's been a parallel movement. I think it's all part of the same thing, that God is working in the lives of our schools, and that's chaplaincy, where people are going into their local schools on a weekly basis, recognised as the school chaplain. In many places, certainly here in Colchester where I live, they're doing that just for 1 day a week, but that 1 day a week they're working in the school, they're investing in the school, they are a spiritual and pastoral presence in the school that comes in as the Christian person who's that presence in the school. And just amazing and extraordinary opportunities emerge, and it's just a beautiful way of being able to help a school. So how does that connect with prayer spaces in schools? Well, we're going to find out in May the 12th, when we're doing our next prayer spaces session, and we've got two people, one who's a chaplain in a primary school and chaplaincy advisor to her diocese, and the other person who's been a chaplain he's a chaplain in 2 secondary schools, and he's also got an MBE for his services to children and young people, which is amazing. So we've got them coming along, and they'll be sharing their experience of what it means to be a chaplain and how prayer spaces fit into that. And so even if you're not a chaplain, it will be really fascinating to hear how prayer spaces can take a bigger space in the life of a school. And to be inspired by the work of these two people. So maybe come back and join us for that one and hear a little bit about that, and invite any chaplains you know as well. To please keep in touch with us. If you run a prayer space, please let us know. We love to know about the prayer spaces that you're running. If you've got any questions about prayer spaces, drop us an email. We're real people. We do answer the emails. We will get back to you. Check out the resources on the website, and maybe we'll see you online again in May if we don't see you in person before.